After directing the horror film Tourist Trap for Charles Band's Empire Pictures, David Schmoeller directed Morgan Fairchild's first movie, The Seduction. Critics hated it, and the film ended up being nominated for 3 Razzies. Schmoeller struggled to find work, eventually getting a gig as a creative consultant on Warriors of the Wind, which was the bastardized, redubbed version of Miyazaki's Nausicaa and the Valley of the Wind. Around this time, Empire had just finished up John Carl Buechler's Troll in their studio in Rome, Italy. The apartment set they built was beautiful, and Band, not one to let good production go to waste, wanted to use it again. He was looking to shoot a film that would make heavy use of an apartment setting as a central theme. Years earlier, Schmoeller had pitched a script to Band called The Peeper. It was a horror thriller about a landlord that only rented his apartments to women so he could spy on them from the Crawlspace. Band called Schmoeller and asked if he still had the script. He said no. He sold it. Band then asked if he could write another story set in an apartment building so they could reuse the troll set. Schmoeller then started working on a similar but different script from the one he wrote previously. The new script was about a Vietnam veteran who was a POW for 3 or 4 years in a jungle prison. When he finally returns home, he finds that his wife left him and both his parents died. In his parents' will, they left him an apartment building, inside of which he reconstructs his bamboo prison. Band read the script and told him, "I don't think America's ready for a film about Vietnam." It was 1985, and it was only 10 years ago when President Gerald Ford announced the Vietnam War was over for America. Band asked him that instead of being a Vietnam vet, why not make him a Nazi? Schmoeller laughed and said, "So America isn't ready for a movie about Vietnam, but they are ready for another story with Nazis?" Band said, "Yeah, but if you do it, I'll give you Klaus Kinski." Klaus Kinski is an actor who's been in cinema since the 1940s and was regarded by some as the world's greatest actor. Schmoeller said, "You get me Klaus Kinski, and I'll make him a Nazi." Schmoeller then returned to pre-production, where he worked on casting the film, as well as doing a considerable rewrite of the script. Although he ran into a problem, he did the math, and in order for Kinski to be a Nazi, he would have to be a very old man. This wouldn't work. He spoke to Band, and after some discussion, they were able to change the script so that Kinski's character would be the son of a Nazi. The script was now about Karl Gunther, the son of a Nazi officer. He grew up and moved to Argentina, where he became a doctor. While working, he accidentally killed a patient. He discovered that he really enjoyed the feeling this gave him. Killing was like an addiction, so he started terminating the lives of his patients. When he was discovered, he escaped to America, where he bought an apartment complex so he could torment his tenants. Schmoeller selected the cast from people he worked with in his acting classes. He also hired some newer actors for various parts. One of them was musician and actress Tane McClure, who was at the time simply going by the name Tane. She was trying to be a one-named artist like Madonna or Cher. She was the daughter of the famous actor Doug McClure, and this would be her first movie. A few years earlier, she was married to Jonathan Cain, the keyboard player from Journey, and was the inspiration for the song Faithfully. You can even see her picture clearly in the music video. The couple divorced in 1984. Tane's music career was doing well, as 3 of her songs were used in the surprise hit The Terminator. Schmoeller wanted to meet with Kinski, so he called his agent. His agent then told him he should read Kinski's interview in the November issue of Playboy. The director read it, and his heart sank. He admittedly didn't know much about the actor, but the interview was very enlightening. He discovered Kinski hated directors. In the interview, Kinski said, "Directors in general understand shit." In the past, he had turned down offers of roles from Fellini, Pasolini, Ken Russell, Steven Spielberg, and many others, usually because he wasn't offered enough money. He said it was his terrible destiny to be an actor. In many movies, there wasn't much difference between the trash and the so-called art films. Almost always, the latter are merely pretentious, and, what's worse, they pay less. So I sell myself for the highest price, exactly like a prostitute. There is no difference. The interview went on, and it became clear the actor didn't seem to like anything about movie making. He also seemed openly hostile to even the mere mention of directors. He had an extremely short temper, and was notorious for throwing fits if things didn't go his way. Schmoeller called the director of Kinski's previous film to ask how he was. The director said he was wonderful to work with. He had a good experience, and nothing bad whatsoever happened. So with this, Schmoeller hoped to be able to make the movie without too much trouble. He had no idea. When Kinski came in for a wardrobe fitting, he hated all the clothes they had picked for him. He stormed out of the office, saying he'd buy his own clothes. He went to some very expensive clothing stores in Italy, bought an entire wardrobe, and charged it to the production. Schmoeller decided to shoot almost the entire film inside the apartment building. That would help to keep the film feeling claustrophobic, while also saving from having to do outdoor shoots. Although they did plan to shoot one scene that took place outside. It was a short scene, and they dressed an indoor set like an outdoor set at night. John Carl Buechler had just finished directing Troll, and he came back to the set to be the design supervisor and work on the special makeup effects. They started filming in the Empire Studios in Rome in late 1985 on a budget of around $750,000. The first day on set, they were filming a scene where Kinski was supposed to grab one of the actresses from behind. The scene was storyboarded that his arm would come into frame, which required the actor to have his arm come in under the camera. When he did the shot, the cameraman told him he wasn't close enough and the shot didn't look right. Kinski flew into a rage and attacked the cameraman, with the crew stepping in to hold him back. This was day 1. By day 3, the actor had started at least 6 fistfights with the crew. The actresses were afraid of him. It was 3 days into the shoot, and they were already 2 days behind schedule. At this point, Schmoeller had a discussion with the Italian producer and decided they had to replace Kinski. Schmoeller wouldn't name the Italian producer, but I'm deducing that he was Roberto Bessi, since he's the only Italian producer on the film. The reason he didn't want to name him will become clear soon enough. Schmoeller called the American producers and told them Mr. Kinski has to go. About an hour later, the American producer called back and said the distribution company that was paying for the film insisted they keep the actor because his name had marquee value. The decision was final. They had to make the film with the actor, regardless of how difficult it was going to be. The 4th day of shooting, and Kinski was again hard to work with. The Italian producer had a meeting with the director. He said, "I have a solution to the problem. I'm going to kill Kinski for the insurance." He wasn't kidding. Schmoeller had a panic call with the American producer. "He's gonna kill Kinski for the insurance money, and he's serious." The American producer paused and said, "Bummer," and hung up. Schmoeller met with the Italian producer and managed to convince him to not kill the actor. He was difficult, but didn't deserve to die because of it. They would just learn how to deal with him. Schmoeller had a lot riding on this. The movie was his first directorial job in 4 years, and if this fell apart, he may never work again. So he was determined to get through this. He contacted some of the crew members from Kinski's last film and found out that he acted exactly the same way on their film as he was being now. He was told that the director, for whatever reason, lied to him. On the 5th day, Kinski's agent found out they wanted to fire him and informed the actor. This was when Kinski decided to declare war on the director. Schmoeller had the first shot of the day set up, and when all was ready, he said, "Action!" Kinski screamed. He claimed in all his years of acting, directors were always yelling action, and he would no longer respond to it. Schmoeller said, "Okay, Klaus, what should I say?" The actor said, "I don't care, just don't say action." "How about if I say Klaus?" He said, "Fine," and that worked for a little while. Kinski was a monster. Every day moving forward, the director went to work with his stomach in knots, worried about what kind of problems the actor would bring to the set that day. Sometime later, Schmoeller had the first shot of the day set up, and when all was ready, he said, "Klaus." Kinski screamed. He claimed in all his years of acting, directors were always yelling Klaus, and he would no longer respond to it. During this time, Schmoeller remembered the Playboy article. In it, they talked about how Kinski was famous for getting directors so frustrated they'd quit the production because it just wasn't worth it. He wasn't going to let him win, so he refused to quit. He said, "If I don't say Klaus, what do you suggest?" Kinski said, "Say nothing, and I'll start when I'm ready." By this point, various members of the crew would come up to the director and whisper, "David, please kill Mr. Kinski." This was happening at least 3 to 4 times a day. The actor frequently came to the set late. Some days he'd go to lunch and just wouldn't come back. They started sending crew members with him to lunch to make sure he returned. When he did return, he was always hostile. Things were going along as good as they could be when one day the director said, "Cut." Kinski screamed. He claimed in all his years of acting, directors were always yelling "cut," and he would no longer respond to it. Schmoeller said, "Okay, Klaus, what would you like me to say?" The actor said, "Say nothing, and I'll stop when I'm finished." By this point, the crew had been pushed to the breaking point. They were no longer whispering. They would say out loud, well within earshot of the actor, "Please kill Mr. Kinski." The director forged ahead. There was a series of scenes where Kinski was playing Russian roulette. Every time his character killed someone, he'd do this as a way to absolve himself of the crime. If he didn't die, then obviously he was supposed to continue.
So be it.
With the crew openly stating that they wanted him dead, the actor became paranoid. When he went to do the scene, he was terrified that someone put a real bullet in the chamber. So he checked, double-checked, and triple-checked the gun every time. The director found he could talk to Kinski about the script, but couldn't tell him what to do. There were scenes where Kinski would leave out big chunks of dialogue. Schmoeller would tell him he forgot to say whatever the lines were, and Kinski would shout back, "I didn't forget! I don't need to say it!" Schmoeller saw this and smartly decided to use reverse psychology. In some scenes where the dialogue was imperative, he would tell the actor, "I don't think we need this paragraph, don't say it." Kinski would then claim, "Yes we do!" and would do the entire part as written. The director did notice something about the actor. He was very interested in Tane, and the actor didn't throw fits whenever she was on set. Schmoeller begged her to stay on set because it was seemingly the only way to get the actor to behave. Kinski did all the writing in the journal. He spoke and wrote German, so they gave him the lines in English, and he translated them into German. The guy who tries to rent an apartment was a cameo from the director. He knew if he did the shot with Kinski, it would be a problem. So they did the scene separately. When Kinski filmed his part, he had no idea who he was responding to.
Creep.
The director discovered if he needed Kinski to do more than one take, he refused. So he came up with a system to get someone from the crew to come up with an excuse as to why they needed to do another take. If the sound guy said there was an audio issue or the cameraman said there was a focus problem, the actor would do multiple takes. If the director said it, he refused. The crawlspace in the movie was really just two segments. One very long curve and one offshoot. They could move them around and shoot in any direction to make them look however they wanted. For some set dressings, they needed to get Nazi photos and film. They were able to acquire some from the US government, but they were not cheap. They had to be extra careful with them. In Italy, Nazi paraphernalia was very valuable to collectors. Whenever they used them, they'd set the photos up and then take them down. One day they were halfway through filming a scene but had to break for lunch. They left the photos up, and when they returned, they were all gone. Someone stole them all. They knew it was obviously an inside job, but they had no idea who did it. They sucked it up and moved on. It was just another problem in a long line of problems. Towards the end of production, they were used to Kinski's antics, so they were able to adjust quickly and continue filming. Whatever he threw at them, they soldiered on and kept filming. The filming was supposed to take 20 days. It ended up being 30, which was 2 weeks over schedule. For a smaller production, this was a big deal. Since the distributor insisted on keeping Kinski on board, the producers had to cover the additional expenses. They finished filming and moved into post. Kinski left the production, but took all of his wardrobe with him. Crawlspace was released on May 21st, 1986. It was trashed by critics who called the film inept, ugly, and disturbing. Kinski called the critics the masturbators. No financial details were disclosed about the film, but rumor was that it turned a small profit. And despite the problems on set, it didn't seem to impact the sales of the film very much. After Crawlspace, Schmoeller continued to work with Charles Band, directing Catacombs, Netherworld, and the original Puppet Master. Schmoeller had the effects department base the look of Blade on Kinski. Some of the art in the film was reused for Ted Nicolau's Terror Vision. A few years after filming, Schmoeller got a phone call telling him that Klaus Kinski had died. He died November 23, 1991, of a heart attack. Over the course of his life, he was married 4 times and had 3 children, Nikolai, Pola, and Natasha, all of which became actors. Out of the 3 kids, only Nikolai attended his funeral. Schmoeller read a copy of his obituary, and on it was some of the quotes of the things he had said about him and how awful a person he was to work with. At first, Schmoeller felt sad. He said, "When you die, your obituary should list your accomplishments." Then he remembered how awful he was and chalked this up to karma. Word had gotten around about Schmoeller's experience with Kinski on the film. He was contacted by John Pearson, who had a TV show on IFC. Pearson offered to pay him to do a video piece reflecting his experience working with Kinski, so he made the documentary short, Please Kill Mr. Kinski, in 1999.
Please, kill Mr. Kinski.
Some called into question what the director said in the short, refusing to believe the actor could be like this. Schmoeller responded, saying, "I didn't exaggerate anything in Please Kill Mr. Kinski. As far as I'm concerned, Kinski is responsible for all his own myth-making." In Werner Herzog's documentary, My Best Friend, you see Kinski screaming at the crew, with a group of Peruvian Indian extras watching in shock. Herzog then told the story about how two of the chiefs from the Indian tribes came to him and offered to kill Kinski. They said, "Because a man should not talk to another man like that." Tane McClure's acting career didn't take off like she had hoped, and her roles in the 90s were mostly softcore films like Lap Dancing, Bikini Drive-In, and Midnight Tease 2. She's since moved into directing and has made numerous shorts, including the multiple award-winning Rockstar, about a teenager that overcomes adversity through music. Crawlspace is a bizarre and downright creepy movie, largely because of Klaus Kinski. As awful as he was on set, he truly is the one that helps to make this film stand out. Not to sell Schmoeller's directing short, he did a great job of being able to keep the film together, and also keeping the actor alive. Watching the film, you can't help but feel that Kinski's acting is on a whole other level and completely runs rings around the ladies in the film. It doesn't excuse his behavior, but there is something to be said about socially broken people who make brilliant actors. This may have been because the women were, rightfully, afraid of the unhinged actor. Although, according to the director, the actor was never mean towards the women, only the men. He was often quite flirty with the women, especially Tane. She tried to stay around as much as she could to keep him on his best behavior, but as she stated, he was, unfortunately, very interested in me. Some of the actresses have since gone on to have successful careers in the industry. Talia Balsam has over 100 credits to her name, from Murder, She Wrote, to Without a Trace, to Mad Men. She was also briefly married to George Clooney. Barbara Winnery was in Matlock, Sunset Beach, and True Blood. Crawlspace is an interesting little horror movie, but a movie about the making of Crawlspace would be fantastic. Something like an angrier version of The Disaster Artist. Schmoeller now teaches at a university and continues to make films on the side. Looking back on the film, Schmoeller thinks it's not a good movie, but it has Klaus Kinski in it. In the end, he said even though he was difficult to work with, he really was great to watch. He recalled that while they were filming, he spoke to his production designer because this was his second time working with the actor. Schmoeller lamented Kinski's out-of-control behavior. The production designer said, "Kinski is nothing. I worked with Elizabeth Taylor on a movie. Now there is a really difficult actor."
This is what makes me allergic to directors. You know, like telling me how to die. As I did, were you already dead? Okay, then get that first and come back and tell me if you know it, you know? It's a shit.